2. The radio died at hour 41. Not slowly, not with warning. 2. 1 second, it was crackling, with static and fragments of the extraction coordinator's voice, and the next it was nothing. 2. Dead weight in Okafor's hands. Useless plastic and copper wire in a room where useless was a word nobody could afford. 2. Petty Officer First Class Nora Callahan pressed her back against the compound wall. 2. She counted the muzzle flashes through a gap in the mud brick. She did the math. 11 rounds left in her magazine. 2. 4 people holding a building the size of a gas station. Somewhere past the tree line. 2. 200 American personnel were sleeping in a forward operating base that would not exist by morning unless the intelligence locked inside her head reached the right people within the next 4 hours. 2. She had a crescent-shaped piece of breaching steel embedded in her left forearm. No way to remove it until this was over. 2. Lieutenant Derek Okafor crawled to her position, blood soaking through the field dressing on his shoulder. 2. Dark in the low light, spreading slow. He didn't ask if she was okay. 2. He already understood that the answer didn't change anything right now. Can you still transmit? 2. She looked at the destroyed radio, at the militia repositioning along the northern wall. At her watch, 02:02. 47, and ran a calculation she could never explain to anyone who hadn't stood in a room like this one. 2. Give me 11 minutes. She didn't tell him what she needed. 11 minutes for. 2. Didn't tell him she wasn't certain she had 11 minutes left. What she did in that compound on that night. 2. In a place that appears on no official record, would save 200 lives. 2. And quietly destroy the ordinary one she was trying to build for herself. 2. 5 months later, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. August. 2. The kind of August that settles onto a person like wet concrete and dares them to move through it. 2. Outside the main enlisted mess hall. 2. The air tasted like diesel exhaust and whatever the kitchen had decided to do to chicken that week. Inside. 2. Fluorescent tubes hummed their tuneless frequency above rows of plastic chairs and laminate tables carved up by years of trays and elbows. 2. The noise was alive. Silverware and boots and conversations layered over like radio signals. Nobody had bothered to sort. 2. Petty Officer First Class Nora Callahan sat alone, corner table, back to the wall, always. 2. She'd chosen that corner on her first day at Lejeune and returned to it every day since. Not unfriendliness. 2. Not shyness. 2. Just the thing that happened when you'd spent years in places where knowing your exits wasn't paranoia, it was the minimum work of staying alive, too. Old habits didn't die. They relocated. They learned to dress like ordinary. 29 years old. Wiry, too. Sun-scared at the temples. Premature gray, threading through dark hair, too. Earned not by age, but by the kind of sustained pressure that aged a person from the inside out. Quietly, too, without announcement. She ate baked chicken that had surrendered to the process long ago. White rice, too. Green beans cooked past any memory of what green beans had once wanted to be, too. She ate with the focused efficiency of someone who'd learned that a meal was fuel, and fuel was the margin between functional and compromised, and there was no third category worth discussing, too. Her hands told a story. If you knew how to read hands' calluses in places that didn't match desk work, too. Scar tissue across 3 knuckles on the right hand, too. And there, inside her left forearm, a scar shaped like a crescent moon. Clean, too. The signature of a field extraction performed by someone with excellent hands and no adequate lighting and no time to be anything but precise, too. She wore a dive watch on her left wrist, too. The crystal was scratched so thoroughly it had shifted from transparent to a clouded amber, too. You couldn't read the time without tilting it at a particular angle in particular light, too. She'd never replaced the crystal, never explained why, too. The few people who'd asked got the same thing people got when they asked about anything she didn't intend to discuss, a polite redirect, and the quiet sense that the conversation had arrived somewhere. It wasn't going further, too. She'd been at Lejeune 2 months. Her orders said training liaison, administrative, coordination, joint service support, too. Her reporting officer was a Marine major who worked from the G2 intelligence shop and communicated with her primarily through paperwork that went nowhere and meetings about nothing, too. Navy personnel on Marine bases weren't unusual. Corpsmen, intelligence specialists, various support configurations, too. But Nora Callahan didn't fit the usual patterns, too. She existed in the administrative structure the way a splinter existed in a finger. Present. Technically accounted for, too. Not quite where anything around her expected a thing to be, which was exactly the point, too. The deal she'd made with herself was clean. Keep your head down, do the work, don't be interesting. Get to 20 years, 2, disappear, 2. Find a small town, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, where nobody knew what a joint intelligence detachment forward operator was, 2, and never think about the words Helmand or compound or 72 hours again. Working fine, 2. Right up until Lance Corporal Brett Skaggs decided that a woman eating alone in a corner was a problem requiring his solution, too. She'd grown up in Flagstaff, Arizona double-wide trailer at the edge of town. Her father, Daniel Callahan, too, had been Force Recon in the 1980s, back when Force Recon Marines did the work that didn't appear in official reports and came home carrying weight that had no official name either, too. He'd returned from Beirut and Grenada with a stillness behind his eyes that her mother couldn't live inside, too. Her mother left when Nora was 9. After that, it was just the two of them, too. And Daniel taught his daughter the only things he truly believed in: land navigation by stars, too. Weapons maintenance in the dark, too. How to think through a situation when everything was going wrong simultaneously and the situation wasn't going to wait for you to finish thinking, too. He never told war stories. He believed war stories made the wrong things memorable, too. He taught principles instead, and he taught them the way you taught someone to swim, too. By getting in the water and expecting them to figure out what their arms were for. Don't assume backup is coming, too. Don't trust equipment you haven't personally checked. Don't believe someone will save you just because they should. True? By 16, too, she could field strip an M4 blindfolded and run 12 miles with a weighted pack without meaningful complaint, too. She wasn't performing competence. She'd simply been raised in it, too. The way other children were raised in piano lessons or weekend soccer, too. Until the thing became so habitual, it stopped feeling like anything at all. She enlisted at 18, too. Navy, rather than Marine Corps, the clearances available through cryptologic intelligence work were what she needed, too. And she understood, even then, that what was in her head was more valuable than what her body could do, too. 3 years doing signals intelligence, destroyers and shore stations, too. Learning the language of intercepted communications, the way other people learned foreign languages, by immersion, too, by pattern recognition, too, by the kind of sustained attention that eventually made the meaning reveal itself, even when the message was designed to conceal it, too. That was when someone found her. No full names, no unit identification, too. Just a quiet conversation after a training evolution where she'd identified a pattern in communications intercepts that 3 senior analysts had missed, too. They asked if she wanted to do work that mattered, work that would never appear in any official record, too. Work that would test every assumption she had about what she was capable of. She said yes. She was 23, too. She had no idea what yes meant, too. 6 years. The next 6 years erased every illusion she'd carried about what intelligence work looked like, too. She wasn't analyzing signals from a secure room anymore, too. She was on the ground with SEAL elements and special mission units, real-time intelligence, support in denied areas. 2. Places where the margin between a correct call and a fatal one was measured in seconds, and there were no appeals and no second chances. 2. She learned to breach doors because operators needed every capable hand available. 2. Learned combat casualty care because medics couldn't be in 2 places at once, and the 2 places were always the 2 places that needed them simultaneously. 2. Learned to move and communicate and make decisions under conditions that compress time into something unrecognizable as time. 2. 3 continents, operations she couldn't name, places that didn't appear on any map she was permitted to keep. 2. She was not a special operations soldier. That distinction mattered to her and to the people she worked with. 2. She was the person who made the operators more effective, who read the signals they couldn't read. 2. Who identified the patterns they were moving too fast to see. 2. Who told them what was coming around the corner before they turned it. 2.
The combination of technical training and field experience and the quality of mind her father had built in her across 16 years of Arizona nights, that combination was...
2. She'd come to understand, genuinely rare, and with that rarity came cost, the weight of outcomes. 2. The ones that went right, the ones that didn't. 2. The blurred territory in between where something went right for most people involved and not for others. 2. Then Helmand Province, March 2021. 2. A 4-person SEAL element and 1 Navy intelligence specialist inserted to extract a high-value asset, carrying information about an imminent attack on an American forward operating base. 2. Time sensitive. The asset had specifics, timing, method, entry points. 2. 200 personnel sleeping in a location that would become a massacre if the information didn't reach the right people first. 2. The mission was compromised within hours. Local militia surrounded the compound, cut off every extraction route. 2. And 5 people held a building against a force they couldn't fully count, rationing ammunition. 2. Treating wounds with whatever was available. 2. Doing the math, nobody wanted spoken aloud because saying it out loud didn't improve the math. 72 hours. 2. All 5 made it out. The asset made it out. The attack was prevented. 2. And Nora Callahan came home with a crescent-shaped scar on her left forearm. 2. Citations that couldn't appear in her official record. 2. And a watch she couldn't explain to anyone who didn't already know. 2. Okafor died in July, not in Helmand, not in the compound where she'd expected to. At various dark points during those 72 hours, that they might both die. He'd rotated home after Helmand, too, been reassigned and gone back during the early phase of the withdrawal, voluntarily, by all available accounts, too. Though voluntary was a complicated word when it applied to men like Derek Okafor and situations like a collapsing infrastructure. People who dangerous geography, and the kind of man who saw that and felt something pull. Two, he was killed during a security escort operation, moving personnel through a compromised route. Two, the details she received were fragmentary because she received them through channels that weren't supposed to exist. A relay through a contact she couldn't name, too. In a conversation that wasn't logged anywhere and wouldn't be. No official notification came to Nora, too. Because officially, she hadn't been part of his unit. Officially, too, her operational relationship with Lieutenant Okafor was a training coordination contact, too. Logged in a document that described nothing accurately and explained even less, too. She found out in a parking lot in Jacksonville, North Carolina, too. Sitting in a rental car outside a gas station at 4 in the afternoon on an entirely ordinary summer day, too. Traffic going past. A green light, then red, then green, too. A woman walking a dog that was pulling hard towards something in the grass. Nora sat in that car for 35 minutes, too. And then she drove back to temporary quarters, ate dinner, too. And somewhere around mile 5 of an 8-mile run in the Carolina heat, she made a decision, too. She requested rotation out of the detachment. Personal reasons, too. A category that existed in the administrative structure for exactly this kind of thing and required no elaboration, too. The people who processed the paperwork understood, too. The way people in that world understood things, without asking questions that would require answers that couldn't be given, too. They sent her to Lejeune. She made the deal on I-95, heading south, watching the flat Carolina landscape open up, too. Exit signs for towns she didn't know. Keep your head down. Do the work. Don't be interesting. Get to 20 years, too. Disappear. Clean. Working right up until it wasn't, too. Lance Corporal Brett Skaggs was 24, too. Built like someone who'd decided the gym was a substitute for a personality and committed to that decision with more discipline than he'd applied to anything else in his life. 2. Regulation high and tight. A jaw, he'd been told, was strong often enough that he'd started presenting it, too. 2 deployments. Okinawa on training rotation that mostly involved watching other units train, too. Djibouti, pulling convoy security on routes without contact in over a year, too. He had a Semper Fi sticker on his truck and an older brother he never stopped measuring himself against. Doyle Skaggs, too. 31. Marine Raider. Selected it at 23. The kind of quiet that earned respect instead of demanding it, too. Doyle sent postcards from places he couldn't name, too. Came home, with a stillness behind his eyes that Brett had spent years trying to decode and never quite managed to. The family talked about Doyle at Sunday dinners and Thanksgiving, and every gathering where someone who'd heard the story wanted to hear it again, too. Brett had been trying to be Doyle since he was 11 years old, too. The gap between what he'd imagined service would be and what it actually was had become, over time, too, the central fact of his interior life. Not a fact he'd named or examined, just present, too. The way a sore tooth was present, there, whenever you forgot to avoid it. He had 2 lance corporals in his orbit. When, too? 22, who laughed too fast. And Petrov, 21, too, who had mastered the art of becoming whatever the person next to him needed him to be, too. They followed Skaggs because following was easier than questioning, and because he was certain about things in a way that felt like leadership if you didn't look too closely at what the certainty was built on, too. They were not bad people. Not yet. Just young enough to confuse proximity to aggression with actual strength, too. What bothered Skaggs most about Petty Officer First Class Nora Callahan wasn't that she was Navy on a Marine base, too. That had a script. What bothered him was that she walked past him in passageways like he wasn't there. Not rudely, too. Not as a statement, just not there. The way you didn't notice a fire hydrant on the way somewhere else. Efficient path, too. Destination reached. He was not a fire hydrant. He was working on that part. But not a fire hydrant, too? The first time, he told himself she hadn't seen him. The second time, she was distracted, too. The third time, Skaggs deliberately centering the passageway, Wynne and Petrov flanking, too. The geometry unmistakable. She'd walked the small gap on the left wall without breaking stride. No eye contact, too. No acknowledgement that the geometry had been intentional. Just continued motion, like water finding the lowest point, too. Wynne laughed. Nervous, Petrov looked at Skaggs, too. And something happened in Skaggs's chest that he hadn't felt since childhood, too. Watching Doyle do something effortlessly that Brett had been practicing for weeks. It started small, too. Comments in passageways calibrated to carry just far enough. Desk, sailor, squid, probably never left a nice, safe ship, too. At the post exchange, Wynne and Petrov shifting to block her path. Nothing quotable in a formal complaint. At the gym, too. Remarks about space and who deserved it, said to the middle distance, the way cowardly things were always said, too. Nora heard all of it. She cataloged it the way she cataloged everything. Efficiently, without emotion, too. Filed under low-level monitor, too. She'd operated in environments where the thing that wanted to kill her gave no warning at all, too. Skaggs and his audience registered well below active concern, which made it worse for him. She did her pull-ups, too. 20 dead hang reps. Smooth and controlled, barely changing her breathing rate, too. She hydrated between sets and gave Brett Skaggs exactly the attention she'd give a minor training obstacle she'd solved before. Awareness without allocation, too. He watched from the bench press, felt the thing in his chest again, decided he needed something bigger, too. Something that would force a reaction, too. He never paused to consider what would happen if the reaction wasn't what he expected, too. The cafeteria incident was planned. 2 days of calculation. Wait for the Thursday lunch peak. Maximum witnesses, too. Maximum ambient noise. Maximum social audience. He positioned Wynne on the left wall. Let the room fill, too. Waited until Nora's tray was in front of her, and she'd started eating, and the moment had that quality of ordinariness he intended to disrupt, too. He walked to her table, said words loud enough to carry, and put his hand on her shoulder and pushed. Not a shove, too. A push. Deliberate. Enough the tray went, too. The chicken and rice and green beans that had already given up on life scattered across government-issue linoleum in a radius that felt larger than it was, too. The sound? Aluminum on tile, institutional dishware, food on floor, heads turning, too. The cafeteria going quiet in a ripple from the impact point outward. Nora did not stumble, too. She caught herself on the table edge. One hand, barely contact, more reflex than necessity. And then she stood, too. Straight up. No scramble, no gasp. In the 3 seconds between the push and fully upright, too, something happened in her eyes that would have been deeply unsettling to anyone who knew what they were seeing, too. Her gaze moved. Not panicked, not searching. Reading. The room parsed in layers. Exits. Potential threats, too. Improvised options within reach. In the time most people needed to process that something had fallen, too. Less than 2 seconds. Nobody in the cafeteria saw it, except for a staff sergeant, sitting 3 tables to the left, too, who set down his fork with a quiet click and did not pick it up again. Nora stood fully upright, too. She looked at Brett Skaggs, not with anger, too. Not with the eyes of someone humiliated and calculating how to respond to humiliation, too. With something far more unsettling, the calm, too. Assessing look of someone who had already solved a problem and decided the solution wasn't worth implementing right now, too. The look of a locked door, not a person locked out. 3 seconds. She held his gaze for exactly 3 seconds, too. In that room, in that silence, 3 seconds that stretched into something that felt like weather you had to wait out, too. Then she bent down, retrieved her fork from the linoleum, set it on the table, too. turned, and walked toward the exit, with an economy of movement that was its own comment. Nothing wasted, too. Nothing performed, nothing given. The tray stayed on the floor. The food stayed on the floor. She left both behind, too. The cafeteria stayed quiet, a beat, longer than was comfortable. Then the noise came back. Different. Quieter, too. Not the same room it had been before she walked out. Skaggs stood there. This was not the reaction he'd planned for, too. Not even close, too. Staff Sergeant Leon Prudhomme had done 2 tours in Fallujah, 22 years in. Combat engineer, too. The kind of man whose face had settled into permanent watchfulness, the way some faces settled into permanent cheerfulness, not by choice, but by accumulation of days that required it, too. He'd worked alongside special operations personnel in Anbar province in 2005 and 2006, too, in configurations that didn't appear in official reports, too. At times, and places where the work got done by people who weren't supposed to be there officially and knew exactly why they were there actually, too. He knew what those people looked like, not the equipment, not the rank or unit patches, which were always variable, too. Something else, a quality of presence, too. A way of being in a room that you only developed when your survival had depended, repeatedly and concretely, too, on noticing the right thing at the right moment, too. The people who'd earned it moved differently than people who'd trained for it. The difference was subtle, too. The difference was everything. He'd seen it in maybe 3 or 4 people across 22 years, too. He set his fork down, looked at the empty space where the Navy petty officer had been sitting, the tray on the floor, too. The lance corporal still standing there, flushed, too. Waiting for something that hadn't come and didn't know what to do with its absence. Prudhomme picked his fork back up, too. He finished his lunch, but he thought about it that evening. And the next morning, too. The day Skaggs stopped Callahan in the weight room and said things clearly enough for the entire room to understand. Prudhomme watched her return to the pull-up bar without acknowledging a syllable. 2. And he made a decision. That evening he found Captain Owen Ferris, too. Ferris was in his office at 2100 hours. Prior enlisted Force Recon before his commissioning program, too. 38 years old, too. The kind of authority that didn't need assertion because it was structural. It came from having been genuinely tested and having passed, too, which was categorically different from having been told you'd passed, too. He'd earned his commission the way some men earned scar tissue, through sustained contact with the actual thing, too. He recognized the way men with similar histories recognized each other. Not with sentiment, with accuracy, too. Prudhomme stood at ease, said he wasn't there to file a complaint. Ferris said he was listening to. There's a Navy petty officer assigned here, sir. Training liaison, too? I've been watching something for 3 weeks, and I wanted you to have the information. Ferris waited, too? I don't know who she is, but I know how she reads a room. I saw it in Fallujah, too. People who've been in situations where reading it wrong means not coming home. She's one of those people, sir, too. Ferris said nothing for a moment. And the lance corporal, he doesn't know? No, too. Ferris looked at a point on the wall above Prudhomme's shoulder, too. Doing the thinking that looked like nothing from the outside and was everything on the inside. He wouldn't. Thank you. To Staff Sergeant. Prudhomme nodded. Left Ferris sat alone, too. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number that wasn't in any directory most people had access to, too. Someone answered on the second ring. He said 3 things. A name, a location, a question, too. The voice on the other end was quiet for 4 seconds. Then, we were wondering when someone would call, too. The barracks room that night smelled like industrial cleaner. And the compressed, too. Recycled quiet of a space where too many people had lived in too little room for too many years, and the atmosphere itself had absorbed the accumulation, too. 3 of the 4 bunks were empty. Nora preferred it that way. She sat on her bunk in PT gear, not lying down, too. The debrief running in her head the way it always ran. Systematic, unasked for, thorough, too. The dive watch was on the war locker. She'd set it there and was looking at it from across the room, too. The scratched crystal, too. The titanium case, with a nick along one edge from an impact she remembered and thought about less than she used to, too. It had been on her wrist in Helmand, on her wrist when the radio died, too, on her wrist in the parking lot in Jacksonville when the relay reached her about Okafor. She could have stopped today, too. That was what kept cycling through. She could have ended the Skaggs situation at the first passageway. One look, too. Correctly calibrated, too. And he would have understood something below language that made further escalation genuinely inadvisable, too. She knew 17 approaches to physically resolving a confrontation with someone of his build, too. 12 left him uninjured and significantly more thoughtful. 3 left him injured and significantly more thoughtful, too. 2 were for situations that cafeteria incidents, however unpleasant, were not. She hadn't used any of them, too, because that wasn't the deal. The deal was, you are not a weapon anymore. You are a person trying, imperfectly, too, without grace, too, with the awkwardness of someone learning a skill they've never developed, to be something other than the thing you spent 6 years becoming, too. You hold the line. Not because the line is comfortable, too. Because someone asked you to carry something forward. And the only way to carry it is to still be here and still be choosing to. She touched the crescent scar, not the nervous reflex version, the intentional version. Her thumb finding the edge of it, too. The clean ridge, the Hellman signature, We 46. Okafor unwrapping the field dressing in the dark, too. Working by headlamp, hands precise even then. He hadn't said it would be okay. He'd said, this is going to scar, too. She'd said, everything does. And he'd laughed. That Okafor laugh, low and surprised, too. Like he hadn't anticipated something being funny, and was genuinely pleased to discover otherwise. Then, carefully, too, while he worked. If we get out of this, when we get out, sir, don't go invisible, too. What's in your head doesn't belong only to you. It belongs to whoever you teach it to. She'd said nothing. It's, too? He looked at her directly. That's not optional, Callahan. I'm giving you an order. You can't order me. I'm Navy, too. I'm giving you one anyway. She'd let that sit between them in the dark, in the compound, too. With the sound of militia repositioning along the northern wall. Then, okay, just the one word, too. Carrying everything she couldn't say more precisely. He'd died 6 months after Hellman, and she was here, too. In a barracks room in North Carolina, too. Trying to figure out what the order looked like when you actually tried to follow it. Tomorrow, there'd be a formation, too. She'd seen Ferris post the notice. Mandatory. No explanation. She'd seen the way he looked at the board after posting it, too. Not administrative. Set in motion. She had a feeling about what was coming. She closed her eyes, too. Didn't sleep for a long time, too. The formation assembled at 0600 on a Thursday that arrived cooler than the previous week, too. The humidity had broken overnight, the climate making a small concession, too. 140 Marines on the company parade deck, too. Captain Owen Ferris walked in front of them with his hands clasped behind his back and his voice at the register that didn't need volume to fill a parade deck, too. He'd led other formations that mattered, ones where something real was being said rather than something procedural, and they'd had this quality, too. Quiet carrying more weight than shouting. He said certain behaviors had come to his attention, too. Said those behaviors were inconsistent with what he expected from this unit, and from every Marine at every rank, under every circumstance, too. Said leadership was not a title. It was a demonstration. Daily, too. Under conditions that were sometimes designed specifically to discourage it. He said effective immediately, too. There would be a 3-day field leadership evaluation. compressed timeline, full assessment. 2. Results entered permanently into service records and affecting future assignments and promotions. 2. Then he looked directly at Lance Corporal Brett Skaggs and said he expected the Lance Corporal to volunteer too. Given how vocal Skaggs had been about standards and warrior culture, the way he said it was not sarcastic too. It was something worse than sarcastic. Precise too. The kind of statement that left no room for the thing it was about, because the thing was already self-evident to everyone within earshot, too. Skaggs's face did several things in rapid succession, none of them useful. He stepped forward. 9 more volunteers, too. 7 immediately, junior NCOs and senior lance corporals who recognized opportunity when a captain was holding it, too. Then Ferris turned to the back rank, to the figure in Navy working uniform. Dark blue digital pattern, too. Shoulders squared. Hands loose at her sides. Petty Officer Callahan, she looked at him, too. Your personnel file indicates instructor-level qualifications in small unit tactics from previous joint training assignments, too. I'm specifically requesting your participation. Evaluator and participant, too. The parade deck went quiet in a way it hadn't before. Not attention. Recalibration, too. The sound of a formation, simultaneously reassessing something it thought it had understood. Skaggs turned his head, too. Looked at Nora for the first time, not as a target, as an unknown variable, too. The look lasted 2 seconds before he put it back behind whatever he used to manage things that made him uncertain, too. Nora kept her face level. She stepped forward. Not satisfaction, not vindication, too. The step of someone who has made a commitment and is honoring it. The assessment started at 0800, 72 hours. 2. The 10 participants drew their gear at 0700. Nora drew hers without conversation, too. Staged it the way she'd staged gear in conditions where the difference between correct and almost correct was the entire difference, too. She checked everything twice. Not doubt, structure, too. Her father had taught her that trust was for people, and verification was for equipment, and confusing the two was how people got killed, too. And 29 years of evidence had not argued against him, too. Skaggs drew his gear and spent the staging time ensuring people were watching him draw it, which was a choice, too. And the choice said something about how he understood the next 72 hours as a performance for an audience rather than a test of function, too. Prudhomme was present as senior evaluator, notebook in hand, saying only what was necessary, too. Gunnery Sergeant Ortega, former raider, too, compact and watchful, had arrived the previous evening from somewhere unspecified, too. He communicated primarily through observation, too, which was a kind of communication that required no words and wasted nothing and missed nothing either, too. Ferris gave the final briefing in 2 minutes, then begin. 2. The first evolution was 12 miles. Tactical movement, 2. 70 pounds of gear distributed across 10 people, arranged into something resembling a patrol, 2. Camp Lejeune terrain, swamp, pine forest, open ground, drainage ditches that required either a jump or an acceptance, 2. The landscape of a place designed by nature to remind people that comfort was a choice they hadn't been invited to make today, 2. Skaggs went to the front immediately. Hard pace. The pace of a man establishing authority through motion, 2. Which worked as a strategy when the person employing it could sustain it without degradation, 2. It worked considerably less well at mile 8. Nora positioned herself in the middle, 2. Not the back. The back was where people ended up. The middle was a decision, 2. From the middle you could track everything. The front, where the decision maker was. And the rear, 2, where the consequences of those decisions would first become visible in the people carrying them. 8. She moved, 2. The right pace for this terrain and this load and this distance. Not fast, not slow. Calibrated, 2. The way a body moved when it had done this, and harder versions of this, enough times that the calibration stopped requiring calculation and became instinct, 2. The way breathing stopped requiring attention. Mile 4. Skaggs still pushing. Still the performance. Pace. Mile 6, 2. First assigns the millimeter drop in shoulder position. The half step slightly shorter than the ones before it, 2. She heard it without looking directly. Perimeter awareness applied to personnel instead of terrain. Mile 8, 2. Still at the front. Still moving, 2. But the form had deteriorated into cost management. His body bargaining with itself about what it had left and how long it needed to hold, 2. She didn't speed up, didn't slow down, 2. She arrived at the 12-mile marker 4 minutes after Skaggs and 6 minutes before the last Marine. And she was not, 2, visibly breathing hard. She saw Prudhomme notice the small shift in his expression. Assessment filed, 2. Stored. She looked at the route ahead. Invisible was not what she was here for, 2. But invisible and the circumstances were developing a complicated relationship, 2. The rest stop was 12 minutes. Water. Rations. Nora was at the resupply point, back partially turned, 2. When she became aware of movement behind her, not threatening, but directed, purposeful, toward a location, her gear, 2. She turned at the moment she needed to. Not before, reactive, not after, careless, 2. She saw Lance Corporal Petrov moving away from her pack staging area. Petrov, too? Who was part of the assessment group at Ferris's specific instruction as a third-rank evalu. She walked to her pack, too. Didn't look at Petrov. Didn't look at Skaggs, too. Crouched and ran the gear check. She ran every time her equipment had been out of her direct sight for more than 30 seconds, too. In operational environments, the gap between my gear is fine, and my gear has been touched, was sometimes the entire margin, too. Water, reduced, not empty. Obvious would have been stupid. A third gone, left boot, unlaced, reached inside, too. Removed the small compact of gravel, pressed into the insole, poured it onto the Carolina dirt. Relaced, right boot. Same, too. Stood up. She didn't look at Petrov. Didn't look at Skaggs. Didn't make a face or a sound or a gesture, too. She slung her pack, adjusted the straps with 2 movements, and turned her attention to the next section of route, too. Behind her, 8 feet to her left, Prudhomme had been watching the staging area. He opened his notebook, too. Wrote something brief. Closed it. Neither of them said a word. Both of them understood the entire situation completely, too. The second evolution was a tactical problem. Notional building clearance. Urban environment, too. Limited intelligence. A structural diagram. Estimated threat positions. 1 extraction objective, too. 30 minutes to plan, 45 to execute. Skaggs took charge immediately. Of course he did, too. He had the diagram and his voice up and was pointing at approach routes with the authority of someone who'd absorbed enough tactical content from enough sources to recognize what authority looked like in this context, too. Except the plan emerging had a fatal funnel problem on the primary approach, too. A coverage gap on the northeast corner. 8 seconds of exposure for the extraction team, too. And a room clearance sequence that would stack personnel in the breach point and convert a single casualty scenario into something worse, too. Nora listened for 2 minutes, counted them. Not drama. Threshold. She'd given herself a rule, too. If there's a fatal error, say so after adequate assessment time. 2 minutes was adequate, but error. Confirmed, too. She stepped toward Prudhomme. Quietly, Staff Sergeant. Permission to offer a recommendation, too? He looked at her for 1 second. Go ahead. She picked up a stick. Crouched down, too. Sketched in the dirt. Approach routes using existing cover, too. Staggered entry, keeping personnel moving through the breach rather than stacking at it, too. Overlapping covering positions, turning the northeast gap into a covered sector, too. Primary and backup exfiltration with no shared bottleneck. She explained the fatal funnel, too. Explained the 8-second exposure, too. She referenced tactical doctrine, by principle rather than citation. The logic those manuals encoded, too, which she'd learned not by reading, but by applying, in places where misapplication had no grace period, too. That's not how Skaggs started. Prud'homme, execute Petty Officer Callahan's plan, too. The silence of a decision that cannot be unmade by the person who wanted it to go differently, too. The scenario completed in 38 minutes. Zello simulated casualties. Ortega looked at his clipboard, made a mark, too, said nothing, which was itself everything, too. Evening brought land navigation, too. Terrain association across mixed ground in fading light. The kind of navigation that required reading landscape as text, too. Knowing what a drainage line meant, what the vegetation density said about what was under it, too. How slope translated into orientation when you had no GPS and no one was coming to find you if you got it wrong, too. Nora completed the course 6 minutes ahead of the second fastest participant. She didn't make a moment of it, too. Just marked her arrival time, drank water, reviewed the ground ahead. The gap would appear in Prud'homme's notebook, too. She didn't need to perform it. It existed independently of whether she performed it, which was the point, too. Skaggs finished 8 minutes behind her. She saw the math register on his face, too. Saw the jaw doing the new version, not the recalibration. Tell not the cost management, too. Something she hadn't seen from him before, too. A man running out of explanations for a gap that kept widening, no matter which direction he was facing, too. The evening brief was short. Patrol base establishment. Security rotations, too. No stated end time for the overall evaluation, which was its own kind of pressure, because without a visible endpoint, too, you couldn't pace yourself toward it, too. You had to maintain the entire time or risk that the moment the evaluators chose for their assessment was a moment when you were rationing rather than giving, too. Nora had operated under conditions without clear end times before. Most of them, in fact. She set her rotation watch, too. Settled in, too. Hour 18. Zero the patrol base was quiet. The way field positions at that hour were quiet. Not silent, too, but deliberately muffled, too. The sound of people managing their bodies through the particular effort of staying alert when everything biological was voting for the opposite, too. Nora was on the eastern approach. She'd taken the 0200 rotation without being assigned it, too. Offered it because the slot needed filling, and she had a different relationship with that hour than most people, too. To her, it was just the middle of the night, requiring attention, which were conditions she knew well, too. She stood at her position and paid attention. Pine trees. The bass sounds in the middle distance, too. The sky doing its pre-dawn preparation. The not quite dark that preceded actual light by 40 minutes. And gave everything a quality of potential, too. Like the world before it decided what it would be, then the smell. Pine resin, too. Which was also the smell of the compound's interior walls. She didn't fight it. Compound interior. Hour 39, too. Okafor in the corner with the hand radio, too. Trying to coax a signal through will and technical knowledge and the stubbornness of a man who had decided not working was not a final answer, too. Vasquez and Park on the south wall. The fourth seal on the roof. Nora at the north aperture. Counting, too. Running the math, nobody wanted spoken. The crescent piece of steel had gone in at hour 31. At hour 39, too. Okafor looked across the room at her. Not a question. An assessment. She held up 3 fingers. Manageable, too. Not stopping. Still here. He nodded and looked back at the radio, then quietly. Callahan, sir. When this is done, too. Don't disappear? She hadn't answered. He kept working. And at hour 41, too, when the radio finally transmitted the message that triggered the extraction, too, that prevented the attack that would have killed 200 Americans sleeping in a forward operating base they believed was the secure. That message went out on Nora Callahan's voice. Too, not because Okafor couldn't do it, because her voice had the modulation the damaged transmitter needed, too. And she'd understood that from the moment the static changed, too. And so she'd crossed the room and taken the handset and transmitted 200 lives, too. The cleanest math she'd ever done. She pulled herself back. Pine trees, North Carolina, too. Hour 18 of a field evaluation, she counted herself back to the present. Grounding, physical, specific, too. The weight of her boots on the soil. The bark on the tree at her 10 o'clock. The wind moving through the pine tops, too. Indifferent and ancient and entirely unconcerned with any of this. Here now. She continued the rotation. 2. Hour 22. 2's at 200. 47 hours. Lance Corporal Marcus Briggs was 19 years old and from Tulsa to Oklahoma and had a younger sister he'd been sending money to since she started college. 2. He wasn't part of the assessment group. Assigned to support, resupply, water, and rations to the forward position, 2. A good Marine by every available measure. He'd been showing signs of heat illness for 3 hours, 2. Hadn't said anything, 2. Because he was 19 and this was a leadership evaluation, and he didn't want to be the thing that interrupted it, 2. He went down at 22:47 without a gradual warning, 2. The acute version, the kind that arrived fast and declared itself by removing the ability to remain upright, 2. Nora was closest. 6 feet. She was on him before the sound of his fall had finished. Not a decision. a response, 2. The structure built across 6 years of being in situations where the interval between assessment and action was the interval between outcomes, 2. Airway, breathing, circulation, 2. She classified the presentation in the language of tactical combat casualty care that she'd learned not from a classroom, but from applying it alongside people for whom it was daily her professional reality. 2. Heat stroke, not exhaustion. The distinction mattered enormously. 2. The resources available to her were what she was carrying. The nearest definitive care was however far the medevac was. 2. She called over her shoulder, not loud, not panicked, exact. 2 people on cooling. Everything cold you have. 2. All of it. Now 2 seconds, someone on comms. Medical, priority, not urgent. Say again, priority, people move. 2. Because that voice, the absence of panic and the presence of absolute direction, that was a voice people moved for without stopping to decide whether to move. 2. Skaggs moved with them, then stopped. 2. Because Nora's was repositioning the cooling process, redirecting it toward the locations where core temperature reduction happened fastest, and explaining why as she did it, 2. In the shorthand of someone who needed the people around her to understand the rationale so they could continue it independently, 2. He'd taken TC training 18 months ago. Standard issue. The fundamentals, 2. What she was doing was not the fundamentals, 2. What she was doing was the fundamentals, plus the refinements that came from having applied them under conditions where the gap between the refinement and the baseline was the gap between the person surviving. 2. Briggs's color came back at minute 11. The medevac arrived at 14 minutes. 2. The corpsman who stepped off it assessed the treatment already applied. One looked up. Who did this? 2. Nora had moved back to the eastern approach. Prudhomme's notebook was open. His pen was moving. 2. Ortega was looking at Prudhomme with the expression of 2 people who had just watched something they'd each separately suspected be confirmed simultaneously and without ambiguity. 2. Prudhomme looked back, slight shake of his head. Not know. More like, I know. And now you know, 2. And we need to talk about this. The medevac lifted, sound receding into the Carolina dark. Nora continued the rotation. 2. Hour 20 to 36 was the long middle, the part where the evaluation stopped being a test and became a condition. 2. A state of existence requiring management rather than endurance. 2. The phase that exposed what was underneath everything else. 2. Because by this point, there was nothing left to perform with. The performance budget was gone. 2. And what remained was structural. and structural didn't lie. At hour 22, Skaggs made a security rotation decision that created a 40-minute gap in eastern approach coverage. 2. The error of a man running on insufficient sleep, plus the overhead of sustained performance anxiety. Small, accumulating. 2. Nora didn't announce it. Didn't make a moment. She walked to the eastern approach and covered it herself. Quietly. 2. Adding it to her rotation without comment. Prudhomme noticed. Made a mark. Not about the error. About how it was handled. 2. At hour 30, Skaggs made a correct tactical call without prompting. Adjusted the watch schedule. 2. Filled a coverage gap he'd identified himself. Small thing. Real thing. At hour 36, 2. He called the wrong patrol route for the morning phase. 2. Would have taken the element across ground that provided ideal concealment for an ambush, the kind of terrain feature that, 2, in an actual operational context, warranted maximum caution and usually received it about 4 seconds too late. 2. He announced it with the diminished authority of hour 36. Nora looked at the sketch map. Not that route. Not that route. 2. The terrain's passable. Passable isn't the problem. She picked up the stick. 3 lines in the dirt. The sight lines. 2. The concealment geometry. The engagement range from that feature to the route they'd be on. 2. He looked at the 3 lines for a long time. Alternate route, he said, to the group, as if it had been his idea. 2. She let it be his idea because the element wasn't going to walk into an ambush position at dawn on day 2. 2. And that was the only thing that actually mattered. Prudhomme wrote in his notebook, Ortega watched the sky. 2. Day 2. The SUV arrived at the edge of the training area access road. Black. Standard government plate. 2. Nothing distinctive about it. 2. Which was itself distinctive to anyone who'd operated in environments where vehicles without distinguishing features were the vehicles warranting the most attention. 2. Nora heard the engine before she saw the headlights. The stopping distance. 2. The door opening. The sound of someone who had a destination already calculated and no interest in anything not along that direct line. 2. She turned Commander Diane Hartley Durvis, dress whites, impeccably maintained. 52 years old. 2. Iron gray hair in a regulation bun that was functional rather than aesthetic. The bun of a woman who had decided years ago that aesthetic was someone else's priority. 2. A chest of ribbons that told a story. Multiple Bronze Stars with the V device that meant valor in direct action. 2. A Silver Star. 2. Several others that read as generic service awards to people who didn't know the classification system, and read as something else entirely to people who did. 2. naval special warfare insignia, Nora went completely still. Not shock. Recognition, too. The internal recalibration of a person who has seen something unexpected and is assessing what it means before allowing any visible response, too. Hartley walked to the training area with the direction of someone briefed on exactly where she was going, too. She found Prudhomme, said 2 words. Prudhomme pointed. Hartley looked directly at Nora, too. And Nora understood, from pattern, context, too. The compound reading of everything simultaneously, that Hartley was not here because the field evaluation had gone well, too. She was here because something had shifted outside the evaluation, outside the base, too. Outside the careful administrative architectures that had been built around Petty Officer, First Class Nora Callahan, to keep her invisible for as long as she needed to be invisible, too. Something had moved, and it was moving regardless of whether Nora was ready. Hartley stopped 6 feet away, too. Callahan, Commander, a pause. We need to talk before the morning brief. Nora caught Prudhomme's eye, too. Tilted her head. Prudhomme moved into the eastern approach position, without comment. Rotation maintained, too. They walked to the tree line, too. Hartley said it plainly. Someone had talked, not about Hellman specifically, too. Not about the compound, or the 72 hours, or what the outcome had prevented, too. But someone in the committee structure, too. In the overlapping bureaucracies of classification and oversight, had introduced a name into a conversation it wasn't supposed to be in, too. An Intelligence Committee hearing, closed session, too. A reference to a female Navy intelligence specialist whose signals analysis had been the linchpin of a joint operation in Helmand Province in the spring of 2021, too. No name used, but enough context for people who knew the system to triangulate. The right people had to. The wrong people were going to within 48 hours. The cover story. Training liaison to. The administrative coordination joint service support was not going to survive the week. How long do we have to? 48 hours before it's outside my ability to shape the landing. And after, we manage it. Or it manages us, too. Nora looked at the sky. Pre-dawn doing its quiet preparation. Then let's finish the evaluation. Callahan, too. I made a commitment to this evaluation. It ends at dawn. We talk after. A pause. Hartley looked at the training area, too. All right. She walked back to the SUV. The night continued, too. Dawn came the way Carolina dawns came. Slowly. Then completely. Light through the pines in horizontal bands, too. Turning everything silver, briefly, before the morning committed to itself. And the bass sounds resumed their way on the deck, too. 4 people still functional out of the original 10. Skaggs was one of them. Just barely. Not elegantly, too. But present. Maintaining, correcting, finishing, too. The man had found out he had more structural capacity than he'd known, too. Which was the thing evaluations of this kind were designed to determine, and could only determine by being exactly this hard, too. Nora looked the same as she had at 0800 on day 1. Prudhomme called it at 0612, all personnel to the staging area, too. Formation in 20, she took one more look at the eastern approach, counted herself into what came next, too, and walked toward the staging area where Hartley's SUV waited and where the next hour was going to determine the shape of the rest of her life, too. Farris dismissed the full formation, kept only the assessment participants and the evaluating NCOs on the parade deck, too. Hartley stood before them. No introduction, no preamble, too. She was a woman who understood that preamble was what you used when you weren't confident in the substance, too. She was entirely confident. I'm going to tell you about an operation. Specific details remain classified, too. But the outline has been cleared for limited disclosure, and I'm exercising that clearance now. Nobody moved, too. Not even the wind, March 2021. Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2, 4 SEAL operators, and 1 Navy intelligence specialist, inserted to extract a high-value asset, 2. The asset carried information about an imminent large-scale attack on American personnel at a forward operating base, 2. The mission was compromised. Local militias surrounded the compound and cut off all extraction routes. She let it land, too. The element held defensive positions for 72 hours. Limited ammunition, no air support. 1 serious injury, too. All 5 personnel survived. The asset was extracted, too. The information he carried prevented an attack that would have killed, at minimum, 200 American service members. The wind came back into the pines, too. The Navy intelligence specialist on that operation was Petty Officer First Class Nora Callahan, too, who had spent the previous 6 years attached to Joint Intelligence Detachments, supporting naval special warfare operations across 3 continents, too. Silence. It landed differently on different people, too. The junior Marines, faces working through expressions they hadn't been given guidance on. Prudhomme, too, who looked exactly as he'd looked for 72 hours, because he'd known. Not the specifics. The category, too. Since the cafeteria, since the fork he'd set down. Ortega, too. Looking at Nora with the expression of one professional recognizing another. Not admiration in the conventional sense, but something narrower, too. The acknowledgement of shared cost. The look that said, I know what those operations take, too. I see what it looks like to walk out of one. And Skaggs, who was listening with his whole body, too, Hartley continued, too. The intelligence Petty Officer Callahan transmitted during the operation covered projected movement corridors for American units transiting the region, too. She consulted nothing. Memorized, too. One of the units whose route was adjusted based on that intelligence was a Marine Raider element moving toward Kabul via the Logar Province corridor, too. The original route would have taken them through a choke point that the intelligence identified as a prepared ambush position, too. She said the unit designation clearly, in full, and Brett Skaggs, 24 years old, too. Standing at the end of the line after 72 hours without sleep, a counseling statement incoming, too. 3 weeks of choices. He was beginning to understand from a completely different angle. He heard the unit designation, too. He knew that unit, had known it since he was 11. Watched the patch go onto Doyle's shoulder, too. Learned the unit's history the way younger siblings learned the things that had taken the most important person in their world somewhere they couldn't follow completely, too. Exhaustively, with the attention of someone who needed to understand the thing even from the outside. That unit, too. The Logar corridor, too. The math completed itself in his mind the way math completed when all the variables were suddenly present. Instantly, too, and without any mechanism for running the calculation backward. Doyle, too, who called their mother on Sundays and came home with that stillness in his eyes. Doyle, who was alive, too, had always been alive as far as Brett knew, because Brett had never been told anything different, too. Because a route had been changed, because someone had transmitted intelligence from a compound in Helmand, too. Because the woman Brett Skaggs had pushed in a cafeteria at Camp Lejeune had been the voice on that transmission, too. He went completely still. The real version, too. The kind that happened when a body received information too large for the usual systems and simply stopped, too. While something else processed it at a different level. His face did not cooperate with his effort to manage it, too. Nobody pretended they didn't see it. Hartley let the silence be what it was, too. She was patient, the way people were patient who had delivered this kind of information before, and understood precisely what the silence was for, too. She turned to Nora. Callahan, ma'am, I'm going to ask you something in front of these people, too. You have the right not to answer? Nora looked at her. I'm not going to decline. A beat, too? Why did you request rotation out of the detachment? The question went into the morning air, too, And Nora, who had not answered this question to anyone, not in the paperwork, not in the exit conversation, too, not in the 8 months since, felt the answer arrive. Not in her mind, but in her chest, too. The way things arrived, when they'd been waiting a long time to find their way out. She touched the crescent scar, too intentional. Her thumb finding the edge of it in the early light. I lost my team leader. Level. Controlled, too. The levelness of a surface where work has gone into making it level, not because nothing beneath it is moving, too, but because the movement is being held. July 2021. A security escort operation, too. He went back involuntarily during the early phase of the withdrawal. Moving personnel through a compromised route to a pause. One beat. He didn't make it the pines, the wind, too. I received notification through unofficial channels because I didn't officially exist in his unit. No formal process, too. No notification to my command. No flag. Another pause. I processed it the way I processed things in those years. Alone, too. And then I made a request. She looked at Hartley the last time I saw him before he went back in, too. He told me, if I made it out, don't disappear. Don't let what's in your head stay only in your head. Pass it on, too. She took one breath, even, controlled. I didn't know what that looked like. I thought it looked like this, too. Somewhere quiet. Work that didn't require being invisible. Teaching, maybe, too. Somewhere my name could be in a document without anyone needing clearances to read it. She looked at the group, too. At Skaggs, who couldn't quite meet her eyes. At Prudhomme, who could and was. That's why I left, too. And that's why I'm here. Full silence. And then Skaggs made a sound he hadn't chosen. Involuntary. Small, too. The sound of composure reaching its limit without anyone deciding to reach it. He caught it immediately. Contained it. Too. Maintained something technically resembling upright posture. But it had been there. Everyone had heard it, too. No one was going to pretend otherwise. He looked at the ground, then up and said, quietly, not his register, too, which made it the loudest thing he'd said in 3 days, the Logar, reroute. That was March 15th. Hartley, yes, too. Doyle's element moved March 16th. Yes. He nodded once, too. The nod of someone confirming something with himself, rather than with anyone around him. Then quiet, too. Ferris handled the administrative close of the evaluation efficiently, too. The bureaucratic framing needed to be completed, and then stepped aside so the actual situation could occupy the space it had earned, too. Results to service records. Released to quarters. He said one additional thing. Looked at Skaggs directly, too. Without hostility or performance. Lance Corporal. My office at 1400. Yes, sir, too. Ferris. nodded at Hartley and walked toward the access road. A man with paperwork who was for once, too, not unhappy about it. The group dispersed. Prudhomme passed Nora on his way out. Didn't stop. Didn't make a production, too. Just as he passed, good work, petty officer. Not nice work. Not impressive. Good work. The phrase that meant to. I see what you did. I understand what it cost. And I'm acknowledging both. Thank you, Staff Sergeant, too. And then it was Nora and Hartley, standing at the edge of the access road, in the full Carolina morning, too. Day committed to itself, sun up, pine shadows shortening, dew burning off the ground cover. Hartley said, too. Walk with me, too. The access road ran 300 meters along the tree line before turning back toward the main base. Long enough, too. Hartley walked with her hands behind her back. Then, there's a reason I'm here beyond the committee hearing, too. Nora said nothing. She'd known there was more. Since 0200, since the SUV, too. Since the expression on Hartley's face at the tree line, a woman who had a decision to make and didn't love any of the options available to. Operation Crosswind is being reconstituted. Different theater, different target set. Same architecture. A pause, too. The element needs a signals intelligence. Lead with direct action, support experience. 2. Operational language proficiency in Arabic and Pashto. 2. Someone who can integrate with a SEAL element without a learning curve. Someone who has actually done it. 2. She stopped walking. Nora stopped. 2. There are approximately 4 people in the intelligence community who meet all 3 criteria, 2. 2 are currently assigned in ways that can't be interrupted, 2. 1 is finishing a medical recovery, making insertion, inadvisable for another 6 months. A pause, 2. And then there's you. Nora looked at the tree line, pines doing their patient, permanent thing, too. Older than this conversation. Older than everything in it. So, this was it? The actual thing underneath everything else, too? Not the evaluation, not the cafeteria, not 3 weeks of Skaggs and his miscalculations. This was underneath, too? She felt the shape of it. The weight, too. The gravity of a decision with this many people in it, and this much of her own self on both sides of the equation. Simultaneously, too. 200 lives. The Helmand, math. 11 rounds and 1 voice on a damaged radio and a number that came out right, too. The reconstituted crosswind. Different math. Unknown number, too. Prevention? You never knew the number of the thing that didn't happen. You only knew what you'd done. And Okafor, too. Don't disappear. Pass it on. She'd made that into something manageable. An instructor billet, too. 23 Lance Corporals in a training bay, learning things they didn't know they'd need, too. She'd built a version of his instruction she could live inside. But here was another version of the same instruction, too. Both versions were pass it on. One was passing it on in a training bay in Virginia, where her name could be in a document, too. One was going back into a place that didn't officially exist and doing again the work she was built for, too. Both cost something. Both were, in the most honest accounting she could manage, the thing she was fitted for, too. Not in the way Skaggs had tried to construct fitness, through performance and external validation, too. In the way things were fitted when the conditions of your life and your particular constellation of capabilities and the specific tests you'd been put through had produced something genuinely suited to a kind of work, too. She was suited to it, hating it, and being suited to it were not mutually exclusive. Helmand had taught her that directly, too. She looked at the scar on her forearm, then looked at Hartley. I have conditions. Tell me, too. After the deployment, if I want the Quantico billet, that offer doesn't expire. Agreed, too? If I want full separation from the detachment, that's on the table, too. Agreed. Ferris, Prudhomme, too. Ortega, their records reflect what they actually saw during this evaluation. Not a sanitized version. That's unusual, too. Prudhomme has been doing this correctly for 22 years. He deserves documentation that reflects it, too. What he did this week, recognizing something, reporting it through the right channel, too. Evaluating fairly under pressure, that should exist in writing. A pause? I'll make it happen. And Briggs, too. Lance Corporal Briggs. His commanding officer gets a note. The treatment administered was appropriate, too. Whoever administered it knew exactly what they were doing, too. He was 19 years old, and he didn't report symptoms because he didn't want to interrupt a leadership evaluation, too. Someone should acknowledge in writing that the right thing happened. Despite that, Hartley looked at her for a moment, too. Something in her expression that wasn't her usual register. Softer? Done? Nora said. Then yes, just the word, too. The way she'd said okay to Okafor in the compound, one word carrying everything else that wouldn't fit into it. Yes, too. I'll go back. I'll do the thing I'm built for in the direction it points, too. Because the cost of not doing it is also a cost, and I've been paying it for 8 months without naming it. Too. Hartley extended her hand. Nora took it, too. Two women whose careers had been spent in rooms where handshakes like this one were uncommon, brief, firm, complete, too. She walked back to the staging area. Skaggs was still there, too. Standing at the edge of the access road with his hands in his pockets and his gear at his feet, and the expression of a man who had somewhere to be his bunk, too. The shower, the 8 hours of unconsciousness his body was loudly petitioning for, and was not going there yet, too. Because there was something he needed to do first, and he hadn't found the shape of it. He saw her. She saw him, too. 10 feet of morning air between them. She would have walked past. The access road went in that direction, too. And the staging area was that direction. And past him was the natural path. Callahan. She stopped. Not obligation, too. The sense that something was unresolved, and resolution, in this case, was possible and worth the moment it would cost, too. She turned. Skaggs looked at her, the jaw doing the version she'd first seen at hour 36, too. The one without performance, too. A man's face, trying to find adequate housing for words that couldn't quite carry what they were being asked to carry, too. I didn't know. No, that's not an excuse for any of it. I'm just saying. I didn't know, too. I know you didn't know. He looked at the scar on her left forearm. Just for a moment. The crescent, too? Visible in the morning light from this distance. Doyle. He made it to Kabul. He came home. A pause. He's okay, too. Lance Corporal. Skaggs nodded. And then his composure reached its limit. Not dramatically. Not with announcement, too. Just quietly, too. The way structures settled when the load finally exceeded the rating. His face doing something he hadn't chosen to. Something that had been building for 72 hours and 3 weeks, and longer than that if you were counting honestly. 2. He breathed through it. Maintained something resembling upright posture. But it had been there. She didn't look away, too. Didn't give him the mercy of pretending she hadn't seen it, too. Because the mercy of not seeing was actually the unkindness of not acknowledging, too. And he was 24 years old, and he'd just received the most significant recalibration of his life. And he deserved to have it witnessed by someone who wasn't going to manage it away from him, too. She said quietly, "You finished." He looked at her. "The evaluation. You made errors. You made corrections, too." "You finished?" A pause. "That's not nothing. It's not enough. It's not enough. For this week?" She held his gaze, too. "It might be enough for the next thing," he nodded. Slowly, too. The nod of someone receiving information rather than acknowledging protocol. Apply for the radar assessment, too. I was going to. I know. Apply. And when you're in selection, and you might not make it through, too. That's what selection means. But when you're in it, too, remember that finishing and winning are different things. And both of them matter. A pause. Your brother knows that, too. You'll find out what it means for you? She picked up her gear. Callahan. She waited. He said, "I'm sorry, clearly, too. No management to it. No performance. Just the 3 words, too. Said the way they should be said when they're real and the person saying them has run out of everything else, too? For the cafeteria. For all of it. I'm sorry. She looked at him for one moment, said, I know, and walked, too. The barracks room was quiet, the way rooms were quiet when nothing had happened in them for 48 hours. A neutral quiet, too. Waiting to be something again. She dropped her gear, too. Stood in the middle of the room for the moment it took to confirm that she was in it. Floor was the floor, too. Bunk was the bunk. Horizontal was approximately 2 minutes away, and that was a correct and good thing, too. She looked at the war locker, the dive watch exactly where she'd set it. Scratched crystal. The nick along the case edge, too. She picked it up, turned it in her hands. Okafor had asked about the watch once. In the compound, too. In a quiet hour between contact events, where she'd gotten it. She'd said inheritance. From who, too? She'd said herself. Younger version. The one who thought the point of all this was to survive it. He'd said, too. And what does the current version think the point is? She hadn't answered, too. 28 years old, an hour, 18 of a 72-hour siege. She hadn't had an answer, too. She had something approaching one now, not the point of all of it. She didn't make claims that large, too. But the point of the next 4 months. The reconstituted crosswind. The theater she didn't know yet, too. And after, Quantico, or something else, but after, too. The point was the same thing it had always been underneath everything. She'd layered on top of it, too. The math that came out right, the voice on the radio, 3 lines in the dirt, the alternate route, too. Briggs at hour 22, color coming back at minute 11, too. 23 Lance Corporals, who would show up in a training bay in Virginia and need to learn things they didn't know they'd need. Didn't they, too? Both of those, all of them, too. Not one version, the ongoing practice of moving in the right direction and teaching other people to do the same, and trusting that the accumulated weight of those two things together was what Okafor had meant to. Don't disappear. She put the watch on her wrist, adjusted the strap, lay down, and slept. 3 days later, too. The processing was complete. Farris met with Skaggs at 1400. 40 minutes, too. The counseling statement entered into the record was factual, specific, too, and not designed to close doors. It documented what had happened and what it indicated about leadership gaps, too, and it left space for future documentation if future growth occurred, because Farris believed in accurate documentation, and accuracy required the whole picture. The memo he wrote separately, to file, too, in the location where memos went when they needed to be available to the right people later. Noted that Lance Corporal Skaggs had demonstrated, too, during the evaluation, the capacity for self-correction and the discipline to complete something harder than anticipated, too. A MARSOC application, if submitted, should be reviewed with that demonstration in context, too. Skaggs submitted his transfer request within 48 hours. Approved, too. Word moved through the battalion in the way information moved in close quarters. Faster than any official channel, too, with no one able to identify its source. The quiet Navy petty officer. A classified service record, too. Joint intelligence detachments, the real kind. On her final morning at Lejeune, too. An envelope appeared under her barracks door. Handwritten. Her name on the front in letters slightly too large, too. 3 sentences inside, I'm sorry, too. Doyle told me later about the people who did the work that didn't make it into any report, too. He said they were the reason some of us got to come home. Now I understand what he meant. She read it twice, too. Filed it in the interior pocket of her bag, next to the photograph she carried of herself and her father at 12, too. Squinting in Arizona sun outside the double-wide that smelled like gun solvent and permanence, too. The SUV was civilian plate, government gray, too. Unremarkable in the way of vehicles, meant to move someone without announcing the movement, too. She stood outside the barracks in the early morning with one bag. Same bag she'd arrived with. Same gear, too. Same watch. Same scratched crystal. Same nick along the case edge. She tilted it at the right angle. Early, too. The day still deciding what it wanted to be. She thought about Quantico. The mat smell. The equipment smell, too. The first class, too. 23 Lance Corporals who didn't yet know what they'd need to know and would spend time in that training bay finding out, too. I'll get there, she thought, after Okafor would have said, that's enough. She thought he was probably right, too. The SUV pulled up. She got in. The door closed. Lejeune went past the window. The mess hall where it started, too. The parade deck where it shifted, the barracks row, too. The access road where she'd stood at dawn and made a decision. She was still in the process of making, too. Because real decisions weren't single moments sealed in amber. They were ongoing, too. You made them, and then you kept making them every day, in every room, too. With every choice about what you were going to be and what you were going to pass forward. The gate, the highway, too. Flat, Carolina landscape opening up, pines on both shoulders. Exit signs for towns she'd passed twice without stopping, too. She looked at her watch, tilted it at the right angle. 5 minutes into the drive. Everything ahead of her, too. She thought about the parking lot in Jacksonville, too. 35 minutes in a rental car while the world went past, and a woman walked a dog, and a light went green and red and green again, too. She thought about I-95 heading south the first time. The deal she'd made with herself, and the deal she was making now, too. Different shape, same foundation, too. The ongoing decision to move toward the thing she was built for, and to trust that the building of it, the daily, too, imperfect, unglamorous building of it, accumulated into something that mattered, too. Whether or not anyone official was counting. Don't disappear. She was not disappearing. The highway opened ahead of her, too. Long and straight in Carolina, and entirely indifferent to everything she'd been through, and entirely correct to be, too. Because the world didn't owe her significance. She just had to show up and do the work, and let the work be what it was, too. She breathed in, out. The pines did their patient thing on both sides of the road, too. And Petty Officer First Class Nora Callahan, too, who had spent 6 years being invisible in places that didn't officially exist, too, drove through the morning toward the next thing, not hiding, too, not performing ordinariness at the cost of everything she actually was, just moving in the right direction, too, which had always been, in the end, the only thing that actually mattered.